a girl a-running in a group. She had a high-speed motor in a 40 Ford coupe. She had a racing cam and a supercharged. Look at Buddy, hot rod at large. She's a hot rod. She's a hot rod. She's my hot rod.
What's
So I've
up?
got an '01 Chevy Camaro, and driving down the road one day, I had lost most of my antifreeze. Took it to a guy, and he started in at the water pump, which is where it was leaking, and pretty much told me that based off of where it was at, that I'm probably going to have to replace the whole engine. So he suggested I just sort of hold off until I get a new engine.
Hey.
So he put it back together to that point, and it still runs. It's been sitting for now about a year, and I start it up every once in a while. But whenever it got up to temperature before, it started smoking antifreeze and everything else. The last time I started it up was about 3-4 weeks ago, and it did not have that problem. It got up to temperature, did not have any coolant loss. So maybe it's sealed up, but I don't know. Do you have any suggestions? The other interesting thing is that while it's been sitting, the power steering has sort of gone a wayside and it's leaked and that sort of thing.
You know, what happens, first of all, is to address the power steering. When that sits for a long period of time, those seals dry up and,
right.
they start to leak. That's just going to be a problem of any vehicle that sits. But what originally happened, let me just tell you what happened. When you're driving down the highway and your antifreeze all leaked out and it overheated, you blew a head gasket. One side or the other, maybe both. It doesn't mean that the engine is completely ruined. Those cars are known for a couple of different things. Number one, the intake manifolds have a problem leaking antifreeze. Number two, the water pumps leak antifreeze. But when you overheat them, they blow a head gasket. Now, that head could be partially warped, and that's why you're getting all the smoke and everything, and now all of a sudden, because the weather got nice and cold, it's not as warped as bad. But it's still going to have a blown head gasket. They make a thing. Go to your local bumper-to-bumper
I didn't
store.
run it with it overheated. I shut it off.
Well, hopefully you didn't do much
getting
damage. You know, maybe you didn't do as much damage as the fellow you took it to thinks you did. The best way to check this, what I do at my shop, I go to my local bumper-to-bumper store, and he's got a chemical that you put into the radiator. Run it till it's about half warm with the cap off, and then add this stuff and see what color it turns. If it turns a certain color, you have a blown head gasket, which means the engine has to come apart. Now, if you have I don't know how many miles you have on this thing. Are there a lot of miles on it?
It's got about 70 or 80.
Oh, that's nothing. That's a baby by today's standards. It is a V8, I take it.
It's a V6.
Oh, a V6. Okay, those heads I believe are aluminum, so they're going to have to be checked. You're going to have to. The head should come off and go out and get checked, and they shave them and they check them for cracks, and then you just put it back together with new head gaskets. It'll probably be fine. 70,000 miles. I would not can that whole motor. There's no way.
Okay.
I would not get rid of that whole motor. I would definitely go to the bumper-to-bumper parts store. These guys are sharp. Bumper-to-bumper, by the way, is a parts store chain that is owned by the small parts store guys that just all join together to buy parts so they can compete with the big box stores. And those guys are sharp. They're not just some goofball off the street. These guys are parts guys. You go to the bumper-to-bumper store and tell them you want to check your car for a head gasket problem. He'll sell you the right chemical, and it'll read the instructions. You use it the right way, and believe me, you'll find out one way or the other if you have a blown head gasket. A blown head gasket is indicated by exhaust fumes in the cooling system or in the antifreeze. Now, when you put this chemical in here, exhaust fumes will turn it a certain color. If it doesn't turn, it's time to get a water pump on that thing and go take it for a ride. You know what I'm saying? If it doesn't show you a bad head gasket, you might got away with this. If you turned it off in time, a lot of times it's hard to catch it in time. Trust me. But if you made it, you may have lucked out.
Okay.
But I definitely check it.
The guy was concerned about if the water pump was leaking, had been leaking, that it also caused corrosion on the inside of the different parts, and that's the reason for replacing the whole thing.
No. Is the oil still good? Does the oil still look good? You pull the dipstick out, it still looks nice. I'll bet it does. I bet you don't have any water in the oil. What you have is water.
I don't remember any water in the oil.
No,
but
you're getting exhaust fumes in your cooling system. Okay, when you get exhaust fumes in your cooling system, it builds up pressure, and it goes to the weakest point and leaks. That'll make a water pump leak. That front seal on a water pump is spring loaded, and it's not very strong. Water pumps are pretty fast leakers. If something's going to leak on your car, usually the first thing that leaks is the water pump. I'm telling you, I would not. If you're going to get rid of that car, I'll buy it from you. You know what I'm saying? I'm teasing. I don't buy cars. But what I'm saying is, I don't think it's as bad as you think it is.
Okay.
Check it first. Make sure you go get the bumper-to-bumper parts store and get you some of that special chemical. He'll know what to sell you.
Okay.
All right.
Will do.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Hey, good luck, buddy. Thanks for calling the car guy.
Okay.
I got to tell you, he may have lucked out. He may not have a problem. Well, let's hope. All he can do is hope. As if Fiat Chrysler wasn't busy enough in court, a former manager of their workforce diversity program has filed suit charging that the automaker systematically discriminates against non-union African American supervisors. Oh boy, in this day and age, really, Sergio? You really think you can get away with that in 2017, discriminating against anybody? Well, if they had the union to protect them, it'd be a different story too, though. But still, you can't discriminate against anybody. I mean, come on. Some of these guys have their way. You wouldn't be able to step on a bug. But anyway, no non-union African American supervisors were being discriminated against by Fiat Chrysler. Stay tuned on that one, guys. I think that's going to hurt worse than the Dieselgate. That's just not good. Well, 2017 hasn't started off very well for Volkswagen. And I told you we were going to fry Volkswagen, and we are. And why? Why are we frying Volkswagen? Because they got it coming. Okay? Plain and simple. These guys are jamokes. They're not. They took advantage of people. They took advantage of a government. The whole thing. And I know we got a lot of new listeners up there alongside the lake, and I guess I want to tell them how this whole thing came about. I always like telling this story anyway. Volkswagen built its diesel, and they couldn't make it run good or get good mileage. They couldn't. They couldn't get it right. So what they did, well, they could, but then it was polluting the air. It wouldn't pass the emission standard. So now today's emission standards, if you ever take a modern day emission test, in Illinois, you just go in, they plug in, if you have a check engine light on, of course, you don't pass. Well, the computer on the Volkswagens are set up in such a way that this is perfectly okay, the way it runs. It's perfectly okay that it's polluting the air, and it won't set a check engine light. So it passes emission standards. Unless, and this is what happened, a little college class out in California, somewhere out there in the land of fruits and nuts, they had a deal where they put the probe up the tailpipe, put it on a dyno, and started driving it down the highway on the dyno. And by God, it started stinking up the air. It was like 400 times worse than it should be. Well, that gets reported to the EPA. The EPA comes unglued. The NHTSA recalls them, yada, yada. And the fight goes on. And you know, the rest is not history. Okay? The rest isn't even done yet. They're just scratching the surface. But this is what happens when you cheat. They cheated in such a way, and they made it, they called this thing a defeat device. Defeat device. In other words, it's a trick. And now, why did the EPA catch this? Because the EPA doesn't do any testing of their own, not to speak of. Very, very rarely. Only when someone complains, like this college class in California did. Said, hey, these Volkswagens, they're stinky. So, what they do is they take all the propaganda and all the facts and figures and all the math and everything from the car manufacturer about this diesel, says that it's clean. And they put it on file and say, okay, that manufacturer's diesel passes emissions. Now you can put that diesel in 5 different models. It doesn't go in just one. So, what happens? They didn't check. They don't know. Well, the rest of the diesel world found out that they were getting away with it, so they thought they would just follow suit. Now, they can fix these diesels for the Volkswagens, but they run like ugh, and they don't get good mileage anymore. But they don't stink up the air. Okay. Now, what are we to do with this? What's the program here? Well, why not? Why don't we just let this happen and see what gives?